Diary of a Man in Despair. Friedrich Reck. August 20, 1943.
An English leaflet reproaches the Schwarz Corps for locating the basis of all wars not in the actions of men but in the subterranean machinations of demons, and the English attack the magazine for ascribing these catastrophes to irrational causes. Now I am not to be listed among the apologists for Schwarz Corps, or for Gunter Dialquin, whose real name is probably Gunter Scholz. I would be the first to grant that the very real, flesh-and-blood individuals responsible for this war, the company directors greedy for bigger profits, the army generals greedy for more medals, the street corner bums greedy for more balm for their egos, who have now been promoted to politician status, have been exposed this time as perhaps never before in a war. But having said this, have we resolved the problem? Have we explained the lethargy, the almost frenzied lack of consistency of the masses in accepting Hitler just 5 years after having declared themselves generally pacifist, in the elections of May 1928? Have we explained the behavior of the females who, as I described earlier, were so overcome by the sight of Hitler they swallowed the gravel he had walked on? Does the behavior of that Hitler youth boy who threw a crucifix out of the window, yelling, "Lie there, you Jew pig," thereby become more explicable, or the ethical demoralization, the brutalizing, the appetite for murder of the younger generation? And do people in England really think that all of this was possible without the emergence from out of the night of a form of delirium that could very well tomorrow seize hold of any other people? I must admit that the whole argument depresses me. It shows the gulf that exists between continental European and Atlantic, or insular, thinking on the subject. They are still trying to come to terms with this historical ghost story by using the old, worn-out formulas of the 19th century. Certainly, we are going to sit in judgment on the visible individuals who pulled the strings here, certainly the wood for the gallows on which I hope to see Hitler, Göring, Goebbels, Papen, et al. Hung has already been thoughtfully put aside. And certainly, too, all of us Germans will have to take our cross upon our backs and carry it through the dark valley of sorrow before the absolute is attained. But is there a nation today so lacking in perspective as to deny the possibility that such a mass psychosis could at some time in its history occur within its own boundaries? Do people really go so far as to accuse unarmed German intellectuals of lethargy when, during the first 2 years of the Hitler regime, at least, the British cabinet, with every possible weapon at its disposal, was itself too indolent to smoke the brown rats out of their holes? I am not even complaining that the old game of who is really guilty is being played here. What disturbs me is the methodology of this kind of thinking, which overlooks the real problem and in mindless and so comfortable shutting of the eyes refuses to face the great crisis of our time. Woe to the nation which does not hear the thunder of the apocalyptic hoofs. Woe to any people under the sun of Satan, who do not learn now, as this sun makes its terrible ascent, to believe in God. Woe to the folk who are incapable of absorbing this single fact. Rationalism has had its day. That heresy ruled the world for 400 years, and now its time is past. The great mystery, the irrational itself, is again knocking at the door. Today, I witnessed the first air attack by American planes, a bombing in broad daylight of Regensburg. It was my first personal and really close contact with the war. There they flew, over my quiet valley, these snow-white birds. I saw one, hit by anti-aircraft, glow dark red a moment, and then fall in a shroud of flames. I saw tiny figures in their parachutes detach themselves from the flames, and then I saw the cords of one of the chutes catch fire and the human load depending on it plunge to the ground. I drove to Seabrook to look at the wreckage. Burning oil bubbled in a crater 14 feet deep at the wreckage. The engines had bored so deeply into the ground that no attempt was being made to dig them out. Around the crater, pieces of the human body were scattered, a foot, a finger, an arm. The remains were carried off in a small potato sack. Near W, a couple of Americans were luckier and landed safely. But then, as they were being led off, 2 refugees tried to spit at them, and only the fact that the soldier escorting the Americans declared that he would not allow it and waved his gun as a warning saved these defenseless men from this indignity. You really have only to scratch your average non-bourgeois to find underneath that good old substance of human decency and that inborn aversion to the actions of canaille. The news from Hamburg is simply beyond the grasp of the imagination, streets of boiling asphalt into which the victims sank and were boiled alive, veritable cities of ruins, which cover the dead and surround those still alive like some jagged stone martyr's crown. The talk is of 200,000 dead. I am not one who believes everything he is told. I much prefer seeing the thing for myself. And I think that in this case what I have seen with my own eyes suffices. I have heard a great deal about the completely wild and disoriented behavior of people in Hamburg as the city burned, stories of amnesia, stories of people wandering through the streets in the pajamas they had on when they fled from their houses, crazy-eyed, carrying an empty bird cage, with no memory of a yesterday, and no idea of a tomorrow. And now this is what I saw on a burning hot day in early August at a little railroad station in Upper Bavaria, where 40 or 50 of these miserable people were milling about, scrambling, despite the angry roars of the station master, into a car through a window they had broken, pushing, kicking, yelling, accustomed by now to fighting for space. What happened then was inevitable. A suitcase, a miserable lump of cardboard with edges broken off, missed the target, fell back to the platform and broke open, revealing its contents. There was a pile of clothes, a manicure kit, a toy. And there was the baked corpse of a child, shrunk to the proportions of a mummy, which the half-crazed woman had dragged along with her, the macabre remains of what only a few days before had been a family. Cries of dismay, disgust, roars, hysterical outbursts, the snarls of a small dog, until finally an official took pity on all of them and had the thing disposed of. Another report I heard was that the firestorm created by the immense conflagration sucked up into it all the oxygen, suffocating people who were far away from the actual flames, and that the rain of phosphorus broiled the corpses of grown men and women into tiny, child-sized mummies, so that countless women are now wandering about the country, their homes in ruins, carrying with them these ghastly relics. In the face of this, can it still be denied that with this war an epoch is reaching its end? Can the fact still be blinked away that technology is playing out its last grim moments, and that it is leaving behind a dreadful vacuum of soul emptiness, a vacuum which can probably only be filled by something anti-rational, anti-mechanical, an X-reaction, compounded of newly risen demons? Is there any doubt that there is no possible way anymore back to the world of yesterday, and that this time those riders now saddling their black steeds are none other than the four horsemen of the apocalypse themselves?